Hello, hello. Thank you so much for joining us today. We have a great topic prepared for you, Copilot for HR, and we're going to be talking about the AI-powered help desk in M365 and Teams. We call it NITRO Help Desk. But I'm joined today by Scott Restivo and James Restivo. They are respectively our CEO and VP of Product Development here at Crow Canyon Software. And they've got a lot of interesting things to share with you today. Before we jump into it, I do have just a couple of housekeeping items that I want to go over with you. So first of all, we're going to keep it high level. My gosh, we could teach a whole master class on AI and copilots, and we could really spend a lot of time on this. So we're going to just keep it high level, give you some ideas here. I would recommend a one-on-one demo if at the end of this you still have questions, if you want to dive into things a little bit more specifically. And also with that in mind, feel free to ask questions as we're going through. I'm happy to answer any questions for you. And lastly, this will be recorded. So this will be uploaded to our YouTube channel as well as to our website. And if you've registered ahead of time, then we'll also be sending this to you via email. So you'll have that recording at your disposal to review and watch over and over and over again. Now, without any further ado, I know we're really all here to get into the subject of the matter today. I'd like to go ahead and hand things off to James to get us started.
All right, thanks, Chris. I appreciate that. Let me go ahead and make myself presenter, and I'll show my screen. All right, so the short demo we're going to look at today is about the AI-powered Copilot that we have available for HR teams and with our HR help desk. This Copilot can be deployed in a SharePoint interface like you're seeing on my screen. It can also be deployed within a Teams interface like you're seeing. I just switched over to a Teams interface. So this is within an HR help desk app that is deployed to the Teams environment, so your users can access the Copilot and any information and resources they need from either the logging into SharePoint or logging into Teams. They can get to it from either of those places. They can the Copilot itself, just talk about how this works, is that we're targeting it to a set of data that is specific to your organization. Let's say you have a suite of documents that are specific to HR, like a handbook, maybe some policies, different things like that. You can point this Copilot to that resource, so it grounds the model in a grounded resource that is pertinent to your users and your organization, and will give them the information they need in a quicker manner than if they went out to a Copilot on the web. So this is a little different than the Copilot, the various Copilots that Microsoft offers. We can talk a little bit more about that as we get further into the demo, but this is just to show you what this looks like as far as how it works. I can show you from either this interface or the other one. It's basically going to be the same source of data, so it should get similar results. But some of the cool things about it are that you can change the text up here. Of course, it knows who I am, so it's saying hello to me. You can change the question here if you wanted to, or have some other comment. You can also change these prompts. These are all customizable, changeable, configurable elements of the Copilot that give your users the experience that you want to give them. So very simply, you might want to put some quick questions up here, things that you frequently get asked from a HR perspective. These are kind of like FAQs. You can put them as many as you want. We chose 4 because I think 4 looks good, but you could put 5, 6, 7, however many you want. You can also control the icon that appears down here in the lower right, so you can change that up based on what you're presenting to the end users. So just to give you a sense of what that looks like, if we go ahead and hit that button, what is the harassment policy at Crow Canyon, we're going to get a response. It's going to take a moment to go through, get that response, and generate it back. So right now it's looking at the source of data that we have, which is the employee handbook and maybe a few other documents, and it's bringing back a comprehensive response. So you can read through this and see what it's all about, and you see here that it's got some different pieces of information. One of the things we might want to ask it is, what is a intimidating hostile work or offensive work environment, which is part of the, I don't think it's part of this response, but it was part of one of the responses. That's kind of the funny thing about AI sometimes, is that it gives you different responses depending on how it feels at the moment, I guess. And then, but we can go ahead and ask a follow-up question anyway. So I just had this: what is an intimidating, hostile, or offensive work environment? We can prompt it with that and see what it comes back with for an answer there. So it'll give me some relevant information about that. So there you go. So now it's got this information about that. And this is for the end user. Now, let's say the end user gets down to the end of it and they're like, hey, this is not answering my question, or I have further follow-up, or the AI is not, or maybe they just don't want to work with AI. I don't know. But you hit the send to HR button, which is going to allow the user to submit a ticket, and that could be to the HR help desk that this is a part of here. It could also be a standalone Copilot that you configure to send a notification to a different resource. So if you had a different HR help desk or a different system of record where you wanted to track complaints, requests, etc., you could configure the send to HR button to do that. So it can go either within this tool itself very easily, or it could go out to other tools as well. You can see it's giving you some contextual information here as far as what it was using to generate the response. And some of the other things that the user can do is they can say, this was a good conversation, it answered my question, I'll give it a 5-star rating. Or, this didn't answer my question at all, I'll give it a 1-star rating. All of that is stored in in a database in the background that you can go and reference and take a look at and see how the Copilot is performing, and is it answering the questions, is it giving the responses that you want it to give. Maybe you have to change your source of data, et cetera, et cetera. There's actions you can take based on that. You can also copy the conversation. So we have this copy conversation option. You can copy it to a clipboard and send it out to email, or you can even email this conversation to yourself and then forward it on to others as needed. So depending on what comes in there, let's say the AI starts acting up, which it usually shouldn't, it's pretty restricted. We have pretty tight guardrails around this Copilot. But in case it does, you can always say, okay, send this to HR, email it to myself so I can send it to security. Whatever you need to do, you can take action, and your users have that capability. Now, beyond that, possibility for the end users and self-serving, this actually also serves a good purpose for your staff members, the HR staff members. And one of the use cases you have here is if you wanted to craft an email, you can have the HR Copilot do that for you. Because it's generative AI, so it's going to generate something for your users. And let's say I'm the HR director. I want to craft an email to all employees highlighting the new harassment policy at Crow Canyon. Can you write this email for me? And boom, hit enter, and there you go. It's going to go through the iterations of the information it has. It'll take a moment to generate a response, but what you'll get back is something that you can copy this directly if you wanted to. Obviously, you can go through and modify it. Once you've got the information here, you can modify it, and you can then just plop it into an email and send it off to your employees at whatever organization you're at. So not just useful for your end users to self-serve, it can also serve your staff members to craft information like this, or maybe reminders, or maybe they don't know the policies and get asked the question, and hey, I was asked this question from my buddy over in finance. Let me get an answer to that, and let me ask the Copilot that question and get an answer back to my friend. If they don't want to log in, or maybe they're offsite for some reason they can't get access to it. So various use cases there, and certainly a powerful tool that can integrate nicely with an existing help desk. It can integrate with our NITRO help desk, or it can integrate with other systems as needed. And just one other thing, couple things I want to show you. You can end the chat, and it's just going to give you a prompt to rate the conversation, or you can just go straight to new chat, which will wipe it out and start it anew. So all that information is there. And one other thing you can do, let's say you wanted to, let's go back over here to the portal. I'm gonna create a new chat, and I want to, I need to update my emergency contact information. All right, so it's going to ask that question. So one of the other things, as part of the links that come up, one of the things that it could come up with is a link to a form. You can see here's this form key for emergency contact right here. So you can pull that open and get right to it. You can also see it's down here. You got it in docx form. You also have it in PDF form. You also have some information about how to manage it and maybe some other relevant resources. So yeah, that kind of gives the rundown of it. Is a web part that you can put onto a page. So this is a SharePoint page running in Teams. You can have it as in SharePoint itself, and you'll notice that you can also embed it around other web parts. So if you have it as part of a intranet or some other situation, you can put other pieces on the page. It's not just the Copilot that's going to be there. So you have some options there on how to deploy it. So there, there's pretty much the demo I wanted to give. Scott, you want to take over from here?
Yeah, okay, yeah, thanks for that. It really showed a lot of the functionality that is possible with the HR Copilot. I'll go back to my screen in a moment. Like you were saying, you can this Copilot tool, this web part that we have, of course, the web part's the user interface, and there's a lot of back-end mechanics going on there, which I'll delve into in a moment. But it can go, like you said, into a portal. You may have an existing HR portal, existing HR intranet, possibly, or even a company intranet. You want to embed this in the Microsoft 365 environment. And we also have web-based capabilities where it's not like a modern UI web part, obviously on the web, but the same functionality where you have this interface, and then it can go back. And I'll show more of what's under the covers here. And like James was saying, it is customizable. You showed 3 good use cases, I think. One is where you ask a question, then you could iterate on that because you go deeper into the question, such as what's the harassment policy, then asking about a specific example of that policy, what it means. You went into how it does the emergency contact form, or any form really. And not only did it give you the link to the form, it gave you instructions on how to fill out that form. And then you showed also crafting an email for staff members, an HR person who wants to easily use information already exists in there. Those are 3 good examples. And like Christopher was saying at the start, we can talk to you about any specific cases you have. Let me go into I'll change it back to my screen and go a little more under the covers, a little more detail of what's going behind here. So give me a moment, go to show my screen over here, and I'll go over to this. So I'll start with this slide here. Okay, we always show this Gartner's hype cycle slide because what we're really talking about here is, 2 years, and then we'll get back into specifically the HR Copilot, but it shows where we're at in the technological maturity of this. So there was a technology trigger. Of course, AI has been around for many, many years in different variations, but really about 2 years ago, ChatGPT came out, and then it hit the mainstream, and everybody went nuts. And Chris and I were laughing because we're looking at these peak of inflated expectations where the YouTubes are talking about how AI was going to solve world peace and world hunger and make you $1 million. And it was really funny to see that all those YouTubes coming out, or blogs, articles in the press and all that, and hyped up stocks, all those stocks like NVIDIA and all that went way high. But after that, it becomes like what any technological cycle into this, what they call the trough of disillusionment. Maybe an extreme way to put it, but basically it comes off the peak and it goes into like, oh, okay, now we're on to something else. And now the news cycles you'll see, don't have so much about AI on it. There's election, there's the world situation, there's, all kinds of other things taking people's attention. But meanwhile, if you're in the technology, you continue the path of maturing the technology, and then you get to this point where it goes up to the slope of enlightenment, the plateau of productivity. And just like now web is ubiquitous to everybody, at the first start of the web, it was very hyped up, then it went down like, oh, that's just a toy, and then it became actually a very practical use of our life. So Crow Canyon's focusing on this real world AI. We're not getting involved in the hype, we're not getting involved in the disillusionment. We're going steady with the fact that there is real functional, useful, practical applications of it. And we have implemented these at several of our customers, so we know these are producing real results. We'll go into a use case a little bit later. So we're looking at practical AI that's safe, secure, and provides real solutions, not getting lost in the hype and not dismiss it as just a flash in the pan kind of technology. It will be real useful and does provide real uses. We're giving people quick, users and staff, quick and reliable answers using the targeted data set, reducing the staff workload, putting it in your M365 or web environment, whatever environment, editing it, working with what you have already. What James mentioned earlier is that we're using a targeted data set. There's kind of two models, the targeted and the open data set for AI. We're going with the targeted data set. The open data set is like Microsoft Copilots. They use the MS Graph, and anything that's in there, the data set, unless you have really, really strong data governance. I don't know how many times this is emphasized by Microsoft. There's readiness assessments that they do, consultants do, and system integrators and MVPs. When I go to the shows, the trade shows, I was just down in LA last week talking to a bunch of MVPs at the LA show. They're always talking about the importance of data governance, but that's not data governance is concerned, but not when you as much when you use a targeted data set, because in that case, we're using a known vetted set of data that is your HR policies. It's already available to everybody, right? It's already there. It's just, this one company we work with had 200 or 300 HR documents all over the place. So it's very hard to parse through that and find the answers to the questions in the same way that the Gen AI we're using, James was just showing you, does. Open data sets, it leaves the door open for a lot more possibilities of finding, skeletons in the closet or data that's outdated, inaccurate, biased, confidential. You don't have to worry about that as much with a targeted data set of a known, vetted, specific set of data. And when you have that, it's tightly controlled. But the access, you only have certain people who can modify it, add content, modify content, update content. Of course, it's available read-only to everybody that you wanted to, but as far as what the content contains is a well-known source. And HR is particularly amenable to a targeted data set because everything's very legal. We have our employee handbook rewritten every year by our HR lawyers, and there's a lot of legal liability, so it has to be very specifically defined, and there's new policies and new laws and things like that that have to be incorporated into it. Especially if you live in California, all they do is make laws about, for businesses to abide by. So that's the case where it has to be revised every year, but it's a known vetted set of data that is, pretty contained, very contained. So I want to make that point. Let's go a little bit about what NITRO Copilot does. Well, we have this stack of 4 different levels, you could say. We start at the bottom. There's data sources, wherever the format, the locations. Then we go to Copilot mechanics. That's what we worry about, what LLMs to use, what use the RAG model, vectorization. Don't have to get into details unless some of you are interested in that. Like James said, we could talk for hours about that. It's really fascinating and interesting and really evolving field. User engagement is what's most important. And James was showing you the friendly interfaces we have, whether it's in Teams or portals. And then the output is very important, of course, that it's delivering appropriate answers. And there's a feedback loop, as James was showing you about the rating and the responses, where you can iterate through and keep improving the data. If there happens to be some outdated data or some mistaken data, it's not likely in HR docs, but in other data sets, it could be. You can have this process of revising it and getting feedback on it. The other point about output, it says deliver answers, it says initiates workflows. And I think we'll talk about that more after I go through a couple more slides about how from that Copilot where it said send to HR is actually a very small button, but huge amount of functionality. James was saying that, this can initiate a workflow, which is to send it to our HR help desk. It could send an email out. It could send it to Zendesk, Freshdesk, any other. The point is that if the user doesn't get his answer in the Copilot screen, his or her answer in the Copilot screen, and they want more information, they can then launch into sending it to whatever source. And of course, we promote our own HR help desk as a place to manage HR requests, but it's not exclusive to that, because our workflow, our NITRO workflows that are behind that button can do other integrations. And if you think more broadly about this, there are other use cases for this outside of HR. I'll go that. Let me show you that. I'll go over to the use cases here. It's kind of the animation, I guess. Okay, not only HR documents, but any policies and procedures, standard operating procedures, employee guidelines, manuals, FAQs, and we're finding new things like travel documents, healthcare guidelines, quality standards for aged care. I mean, just enormous construction, and we're construction documents and specifications. The same idea of having a targeted data set with a Copilot running on top of it, and then doing some either output to the user that is useful and it solves the answer and gives them the information they need at that moment, or it can launch a workflow that then goes into whatever the next step in the process is. So I'm going to think, keep in mind this broader case of what can be done with the NITRO Copilot. We're talking specifically about HR here in this webinar, but I do want to bring up that subject, that possibilities that this Copilot has a lot of other uses. I'll go back to the previous slide about what NITRO Copilot offers. Here we are. We're offering an end-to-end solution that's easily implemented with minimal configuration. We have configuration. James didn't go under the hood, but there's a lot of little configuration things, like he said, about what the prompts say, what the title says, what the colors are. It can have your logo. We dress it up. What we're showing you in the demo is kind of a stripped down version of what's possible, because we don't want to make it very specific that it gets locked into a particular use case, but we want to say here's all these possibilities to do the end user interface. We can configure it. The other point is that we are using, and I think in this HR Copilot, we're using the Azure OpenAI, but we can go to different LLMs. We could go to Claude 3, we could go to Gemini, we could go to Llama. We're not dependent only on using OpenAI. What we're doing with the Copilot is making it available. Well, here it is. Yeah, I can use different LLMs right at the bottom. So what we're saying is we can use different LLMs and even mix them up. There's cases where if certain kind of queries with a Copilot, you want to use this LLM for that and that LLM for this because it's better or less costly to use this LLM for part of the prompt. And and this gets into the technical details, but a little bit. You can go to multiple prompts, multiple LLMs, and work the prompts between them so you get the answers. There's a lot going on in that Copilot mechanics layer of the NITRO Copilot that, that if you do want to get to that level, we can tweak it and work it. And because we're able to tweak it that way and use different LLMs, we can gear it to give, like kind of fine tune it for your specific purpose. What we're finding, I'm just going to deal with the elephant in the room, is like, why aren't you using Microsoft Copilot Studio or something like that? Well, we don't want to be dependent on them and subject to their constraints of what's possible within the Copilot. It's one of these cases where we've been doing development of 25 or more years on top of the Microsoft collaboration platforms, and we understand the good of them, the value of that, but also sometimes there's a need to go your own way. And Microsoft does not own AI. There's many other LLMs, other ways to interact with it that provide better solutions at lower cost than what Microsoft provides in the Copilot. I mean, it's we can go deeper into that conversation, but this is a decision we made to not just be running the Microsoft Copilot as a consultant team that's just learning how to implement Microsoft Copilot. That is limited as what your possibilities are. Plus, there's a cost to it. It's higher than our cost. And that is a problem when you want to really fine tune and make it work the best it can for your users and for your staff. We don't want to be constrained by the limitations of the Microsoft Copilot, where it only goes to OpenAI and you have to use particularly this and particularly that and only Power Automate and on and on and on. It can work in certain cases, It's like going to Papa Murphy's and getting the frozen pizza, It's like, okay, or a frozen pizza from the store. You're getting a pizza, right? But if you really want a good pizza, either you get your dough, make it yourself. I mean, any good pizza restaurant doesn't use, a Papa Murphy's or frozen pizza, obviously, right? So it's that kind of thing. You want high quality, that's the best. It can be fine-tuned to your organization. You have to go directly to the mat, go to the LLMs, find out what works best, incorporate agents, incorporate vector databases that are fine-tuned for your particular reasons. So I just want to point that out because I'm sure it's inevitably going to come up. Why not use Microsoft Copilot? Well, there's a lot of reasons, and we could delve into it a lot more. This slide shows we integrate with different tools we have, like Request Manager and NITRO Help Desk. James pointed out that we could integrate with other, whatever you have there going already. You know, the Copilot can launch workflows that then push that information that was provided in the LLM, in the Copilot, out to other sources and take the workflow from there. We're really excited by this. I hope I'm conveying that the possibilities here. We're not getting involved in this inflated expectations, but we're finding real world practical solutions that are going to carry out and provide real benefits to your organization in terms of cost saving, time saving, and other possibilities there of benefit here, real practical use that benefits and increases productivity. What we see the HR Copilot essentially as is a helping hand. Copilot, it's not a bad word for it, as a helping hand to the HR department. It's not replacing people. It's not going to knock out an HR worker, but it is going to make their job easier and more effective. And I think we have a stat there, don't we, Krista, about where, let's go into where we, let's see, demo another, okay, here we are. For a large US city's HR department, with that over 200 or more policy and procedure documents with a wide range of topics, we implemented a Copilot. This is real world in action right now, actively used. And the staff was having difficulty finding information on different subjects like leave policy, disability, whatever. There's 1,001 questions. We have found that implementing the Copilot gave people an easy to use portal. It was having to be in 365 and Teams, and using their targeted data set, of the HR documents. Now they can use it to quickly find information they need. The end users get answers. It's like 24/7. So it's not like, middle of Saturday night, someone has a question. I don't know why anyone would, but if they did at the middle of Saturday night, they can ask the question and the Copilot would answer to be available. HR staff load is reduced. They're finding a 20% drop already in simple inquiries that they're not having to deal with because the user is getting the answers right away. We gave them a friendly user interface with M365 and Teams. And as James showed, staff can use the Copilot to quickly craft email responses. And the result is they're finding reduced cost and better service. And now they want to extend it to other departments and other areas in their organization. And, city has different departments, of course, and they want to use it. One thing a government has is a heck of a lot of documents and policies and procedures that are very formalized and, give us these good targeted data sets that we can use a Copilot against. And HR is a very easy example of that. Now, we were talking about showing our HR help desk a bit. We could do that, but before we end, the data set needs to be uploaded. That's a question I got right there. Yeah, let me address that right now. The current iteration of what James is showing you about HR Copilot is everything sitting in a document library in SharePoint, all these documents. They didn't have to be converted, didn't have to be changed into anything. What they did is just, you can copy all the PDFs or whatever into the Word docs, whatever, into the document library, which gives you a nice tight permission control over who has access to that document library. Essentially a OneDrive folder, you could call it. And in that folder is this set of data. So some people have that going already where the HR documents are already in a shared file folder like OneDrive already. So it wasn't very much of a transition. Other people have stuff scattered all over the place or in different format. We're working, and James talked about a looking forward. I don't know if you mentioned it, but in our conversations, we're going to say what we're going to have coming. And one thing we're doing with the Copilot, NITRO Copilot, is looking outside of the SharePoint environment for information, such as other data sets. We have a project going with a case management system where there's essentially a CRM about all the patients, and patient records go back 20 years. So they want to find information. So the AI used against patient records in a database, essentially, but it's a CRM with a SQL database in the back end. Another project we're working on is scraping websites, where they have all the information up on their website. And James, maybe you want to pipe in about what we're doing for our own CrowCanyon.help support site, where we're have all our FAQs up on the web and all that, how we're able to access other data sources besides document libraries. We're growing that capability quite a bit. Isn't that what we're doing? Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, we're pointing the Copilot to a resource. We can point it to a number of different resources that house the data and house the information that you want to use for that to generate that response. So that's the RAG model, retrieval augmented generation model of AI that is, I think, really going to be the future of what these copilots look like and what they can do, because it is targeting that data set and making it specific to your use case or your needs. And you're configuring these copilots, whether it's in here or on a website, you're configuring it to act as something, right? So this is a helpful HR assistant. On our website, it could be a helpful NITRO Studio configuration a person. So you're kind of you're giving it that prompt. You're giving it that, you're pre-prompting it, as I know that's an area that some users might struggle with, is what's the right prompt to use. So a lot of what we're doing here is giving your users that pre-prompt information so that they don't have to tell the HR Copilot to be an HR assistant. It already knows it as an HR assistant. Things like that. But yeah, the data sources can be in different places.
Right, we're growing that capability to not only have one, multiple data sources, as we said in that diagram, that can be in multiple formats. So it's not like you have to. I mean, in the first like 1.0 versions, there was this idea of copy everything into this area, into a particular format. We're beyond that now. We're now at the point where you can be in this standard format of a PDF doc or whatever. Also, we're talking about reading database content. Of course, what queries to make and where the tables are and all that takes a little bit of configuration. Where is the data, in other words, in the CRM database? How do you, it's outside of SharePoint, outside of M365. That's the case management one we're working on for patient records. And the other is websites have like HTML pages, and kind of like how spiders and Google like that crawl the web. It's the same kind of idea. Or there's a lot of web scrapers out there too that are oriented towards the AI world, where you can get a lot of information, extract the information from the website in particular data source. He's pointed to an FAQ page or pointed to a particular source of information, and then the Copilot, the Copilot can run against that data. We're here, again, the whole concept is targeted data sets. If people want to go Copilot against open data sets, that's possible too, but then you have to be more concerned about data governance, hallucinations, outdated information, biased information, confidential information. Of course, we can't do it, and we work with partners who help with data governance, especially in the M365. If you're using Microsoft Copilots, like Copilot for 365, it's going to read everything that, all your Teams messages, all your emails, all your documents, and you might not necessarily want to expose all that into AI, because you find stuff from years ago that is well, it's not quite what I want AI to answer. It's like, it's a little funky. So we're talking about real practical real world uses, and I think we've got a few great questions that really show an interest in where we're going to go with this and how we're going to keep growing the AI as we get out of, ignoring that it's going to solve world problems or it's just a toy, to really real world practical applications. We're working on, let's see, there's one about housing authority that does housing for large number of residents. And they have all these apartment units and whatever, but there's kind of like the CCNRs, the guidelines for the residents, and give the residents the ability to easily ask, what's the parking policy? Can I have what size dog can I have in the upstairs apartment? What happens if I want to change the rugs? And, all these kind of things that give them information without having to go to the, to the management company to get those kinds of answers. There's other projects we work with a healthcare down in Australia with the aged care community down there. There's a whole bunch of aged care standards that the government puts out, large documentation about it, that the aged care operators have to abide by. And, it's a little bit to plow through all that. So an AI tool that we're working on will be able to give them the information based on the government publications and documents and assorted websites and, other information from blogs and, the whole newsletters and industry down there, to give them a nice Gen AI response if they say, what about what is the standard for, you know, type of beds we're supposed to have in aged care facilities, or what happens if someone has dementia, you know, what's this, what's that, what's the proper procedure? And that works not only for aged care operators, but also for nurses and healthcare, you know, health care providers, so they can understand kind of the government regulations and the processes and procedures. We also use it for, in a broader sense of healthcare, to, you know, if there's a policies and procedures about how to care for patients that are separate from the government quality standards that might be implemented by that organization specifically. So you can think of like a zillion different uses for this. It's quite fun to develop and move along with the technology and see, and as the models for AI get better and better, you know, there's ChatGPT, but there's 4.0 came out, and Claude 3 is quite impressive too. I mean, we're doing a lot with that, especially in construction documents. We're finding it particularly useful for, you know, here's us, just to give you a quick example. I know it's not HR, so excuse me here, but there's a proposal, an RFP for to build this big building, and then there's certain standards that each piece of equipment is supposed to have in there. So how do you match what the vendor is proposing as the piece of equipment? Does it meet the standard that's in the specification? And what is that standard, like ISO 2007 or whatever, 2701 or whatever the standard is? Does it meet it? And then you do, you know, it's the thing of being able to understand what the vendor, the manufacturer, what the manufacturer's website, what the vendor's proposing, what the specifications are. You kind of mix it all up, and that's a big difficulty in the construction industry, because if they get the wrong piece of equipment that doesn't meet the standards, it could hold up the job for several weeks. So it's a real use case there. That's what we're finding, real practical use case examples. And we can easily talk about this on and on, like James said, because it's quite fascinating. Do we want to show a little bit more about the help desk before we have, well, we're at 40 minutes here? Why don't we do that, James? Are you ready to show that?
Yeah, sure.
Okay, we'll switch over to
Yeah.
your screen. So just to, you know, give you the context here, we're more or less leaving the AI part of it and Copilot. If anyone's interested in that, we'd love to talk to you, find out what your use cases is, go into more depth. It's just hard in a webinar. So that's why what Chris has said about the one-on-one conversations is quite important to have and understand. We're all kind of working it out together, you could say, in a lot of ways.
Yeah.
So you're showing your screen. Okay, James, you take it from there and show, you know, what happens.
Yeah. Kind of show you know the back end of what the help desk. Once you hit that send to HR button in the Copilot, or if you intake that request in some other manner, then I can kind of walk you through what that looks like for the end user and for the technicians or the HR staff who will be managing those requests on the back end. So at the outset, beyond the Copilot, if you wanted to have some quick requests for your users, you could do that. This is a landing page where your end users can come to, whether it's in Teams or in SharePoint, and they won't see anyone else's tickets, right? They'll see their tickets. There's a view my request link, so they'll see their requests, but they're not going to see anyone else's requests. So that preserves that you know, security, you know, preserves that confidentiality of some requests that might come in. Only HR staff can see all the requests, right? So the person who's submitting can only see their own. And there's a view my request link right here in the portal so they can see that. And of course, they can also, you know, to get it going, they want to submit a request. You can see here's one I put in here already. So if they want to submit a request, there's a submit new request link from the portal page where they can come in and fill out some information as far as the title. Maybe there's impact and urgency to the request. We can, you know, this is all going back to the customizability of the Copilot. A lot of this can be changed. A lot of this can be modified. Importantly, there's categories and issue types so that you can have your end users tell you what they're asking about. Is it you know, its benefits, its eligibility? And you can see there's a KB article. There's a link here to a knowledge base, which is what the Copilot's also pointing to, that will show here's the knowledge base article that has this category and issue type, so users can self-serve that way as well. Instead of using the Copilot, they can use this. They can fill out the description and then submit it in. Now what happens is a number of different things can happen once you submit this request. The request goes to the, oh, that's interesting. All right, I'll get off that for a minute. Not sure what happened there. But yeah, the request comes into the back end here, which is where the your HR staff are going to be working. So your HR staff have this agent workspace that they work from, where they'll see tickets that are assigned to them. They'll see ones that have come in. They'll see where, if they are unassigned, they can assign them to themselves, or if they have any specific tasks. So this is kind of the dashboard area that your staff members can come into and manage their tickets. So they'll get notified if a ticket is assigned to them. As part of the tool, those requests can be auto routed, auto assigned to particular end users, or they could be assigned on a round robin basis, so that you're always load balancing which staff have more tickets and which ones don't. And ultimately, you can see some reports around that as well. But it comes in, they look at the requests, they fulfill the request, either communicate with the end user to fulfill that request, or whatever they need to do, and then they can mark it as closed. They can, if it's not assigned, they can assign it to themselves. If they're done with it, they can resolve it. There's a merge option if there's multiple requests about the same issue or same request coming in, or they can assign it out to someone else if they're not, either if it was misassigned to them, or they know they're going to be out and can't attend to the request, they can go ahead and assign it to someone else. Through the tool, you can track as much or as little information as you want about the ticket. There's the staff member as far as who's assigned to it. You can track dates as to when it's resolved, when it's due, when it was closed, what the ultimate resolution was. So you can track that for knowledge base purposes. You have a work log, so you can track what was communicated to the end user and any tasks or things you might have done to complete that request. Those also link over to the knowledge base itself if you have any knowledge base articles related to this particular category and issue type. And then you can see your related items, anything related to it, the email history, if you're sending an email or it came in via email, all that information is tracked here as well. You can track your tasks, you can track your time tracking, how long it took to fulfill that request. Beyond that, there are service level agreements that you can apply based on a number of different criteria, whatever criteria you want, really. It could be based on the category and issue type that comes in. It could be based on the requester that comes in. It could be based on the location of that requester. So a number of service level agreements you can put in place around those tickets. And what's going to happen is those service level agreements, whether you use them or not, you can track the metrics around them. And you can track the metrics of how long it takes to resolve tickets. You can track a whole bunch of information about the requests that come in by priority and category, by category and issue type. You can see your staff load if you need to rebalance and the round robins maybe not working right, or you don't have it turned on. You can manually manage who has the tickets assigned to them or the requests assigned to them. You can see your trend analysis, so you can see how many are coming in on a week by week basis. You can see how many came in the last 7 days. You can see which staff closed requests. It's a demo, so we don't have any closed requests. You get a couple of them in here, so you can close them out. Request performance, so you can see how your response time. So again, this is whether you use those service level agreements or not, you can still track how long it takes to respond to those tickets. You can track how long it takes to assign those tickets requests. You can track it by priority. You can track it by category. So various metrics that you can obtain about those reports, about those requests. There's also surveys, and you can send out at the end of it to see how effective the answers were, how effective the responses were. And then if you're using your SLA, service level agreements, you can track those metrics in here as well, whether they're breached or not, breached or met, and then you can start digging down into the whys of why that's start doing some root cause analysis on that. You can have a place you can store your documents. So I believe this is what one of the places that the Copilot's using, and we have a few documents here, but you can track them in general. I mean, whether you use the Copilot or not, you can track the requests or the documents in here. So any knowledge base information, any documents that are relevant, you can put them into this place. Then you can track tasks. And I think these budget things, those are ones I built out for a specific demo, so I think you can safely ignore those. Beyond that, you have the report center, which gives you more reports, or you can build your own reports on those requests. And then you have a whole administration area where you can go through and track, update things. Like this gives you an idea of how customizable it is, or how configurable it is, as far as creating your own categories and issue types, managing your notifications, what those templates look like, and managing your service level agreements, the permissions for the site, a whole bunch of different things that you you can do here from an admin level that'll help you to manage the program and set it up the way you need to set it up. Of course, we're always there to help you get things set up. We have some implementation services that you can run through us that will allow us to help you get set up if you need assistance getting things configured, getting things in place, setting up those notifications, or any specific workflows you might have. If you had any, specific approval workflows or onboarding workflows, or things like that you wanted to put in place, we can work with you to get those things put into place on a case-by-case basis. But that's where we want to have a conversation and a one-on-one demo where we can gather your requirements and find out what it's going to take to put in what you need, if you need something else that's outside the box here. But yeah, that's a rundown, kind of quick high level of the help desk. And certainly if you want to get more details, we encourage you to set up a demo, encourage you to email us and contact hello@crocanan.com to get more information, and we'll get you scheduled with a one-on-one demo, and so you can get more details and get your questions answered and see anything that you might not have seen on this webinar today. I just want to kind of keep it a little bit high level on the demo piece of it. But yeah, certainly if you wanted to reach out and get more deeper dive into what we're offering or ask specific questions, we're there for you to set that up and get those questions answered.
That's great, James. Thanks. I think we can wrap it up there, and appreciate everyone attending and sticking with us. And hopefully it's been useful, especially about the Copilot part and the help desk part. And we'll get some questions and interest from you guys about how we can go forward. You'll always just, like James said, have a conversation, book a demo, whatever it takes. And as we explore what's possible to make HR and other areas more efficient, more streamlined, with real world uses of AI and Microsoft 365 and Teams. All right, anything else? We're good, right?
I think we're good. Thank you, everyone.
Okay, have a good day. Okay, bye-bye.
Thanks all. Bye-bye.